Every time I think dominoes have reached their limits, someone comes in and innovates on structures, and it completely blows my mind. What's up, Domino community? Today, we have a very special guest on episode 4 of my Freestyling a Domino Project series. I am joined by none other than MarDominoes, also known as Nathan, formerly known as Super Man 1, and he is a structural innovator, one of the most talented domino builders I know, who is actively building. At least, I hope that he's still actively building. You never really know. But I want to introduce MarDominoes. If you haven't checked out his channel, go check out his channel. We are going to be talking about a collaboration project that we've been working on. MarDominoes actually just flew in randomly. He texted me a week ago and was like, hey, you want to do a collab? Let's build. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Sure. So he got a plane ticket and now he's here, and out of the blue, we are building a domino project and kind of just randomly building and seeing where it goes. So I'm going to pass the mic to Nathan, and he's going to talk about what he's built so far, and you'll get to hear his perspective on how he builds dominoes and just go into the mind of MarDominoes. So here we are. This is MarDominoes.
Hey Domino community, thank you for that introduction, Lily. I'm really excited to be on this podcast. I have a lot of things that I think were really interesting about our collab this week, so I'm excited to get to explain some of our process and get to it. So I usually come into a project when it's just a freestyled fun project with a couple of concepts in mind, things that I'm really excited to build. And that's what I do for my personal records at home. I usually have one or two ideas that I'm really excited about, and that's kind of how the rest of it forms. And I was a bit nervous coming into our build this week. I haven't really done dominoes in a long time. I haven't really thought about dominoes in a long time, and I didn't really have those ideas when I got here, or at least when I was booking my flight and all that. And I've done a few things at home, like you were saying, hopefully I'm still building. I kind of am. I have some stuff set up at home, but it's at the point where I just don't really build that much. I don't know if I'll ever finish it, but I do kind of experiment more than I actually make complete topples. And a few of my experiments are with things like making radial structure designs, figuring out plans for when I do events like this. And I was lucky enough to just kind of on my way to the airport, I think, I was like, what if I did one of my favorite tricks now with structures is called mountain chaining. It's where you have two walls and one is sort of free formed off of the other one. So it's one is dependent on the other, but the other is not. But I had this idea where you could basically curve different mountain chained walls, and eventually by curving them, it will naturally make a circle, and then the amount of half pyramids or walls or whatever you want to use is dependent on how much curve there is. And so I texted Lily, I was like, could you print out a decagon for me? Because as you guys may have seen in previous episodes, that's how we geometrically will measure stuff out. We have a paper printout of whatever shape we're going to use, and then that way we can use more organic measurements like dominoes and things like that to just kind of put on the paper, and then we measure it out like that. So I ended up having a decagon printed out. I put some of the largest H5 field starters on each end, and then put the color palette that I decided on each end, and then built a curved base layout for each one. And then I did a little test with each wall to make sure the mountains were not too curved, but also curved enough to where they could make the radial design. Also using a reasonable amount of dominoes, which for me, I think a reasonable amount of dominoes for a project like this is anywhere from 2 to 4,000. I think Lily may disagree with me as I came in and there was a 6,000 domino cube already built, which is just mind-blowing to me. So normally when you're doing a curved wall or a curved half pyramid, you would use the column wall technique, and that makes it a lot easier for curves because you can just measure the outsides to be the right space and then the insides to be the right space. But when you're doing mountain chain, the whole point is that it has to be an alternating wall so that they can chain off of each other, which is significantly harder with curved walls. You need to make the curve wide enough so that it will still fall, because if the dominoes are too close on the bottom, like any wall, it gets jammed, and that's definitely exaggerated for curved walls, but also close enough to where the ones that are on the outside will have enough space to be placed. You can see on some of the half pyramids, there are dominoes that are just barely on both sides. So it's definitely harder to measure out curved alternating walls than a regular domino wall, because you basically have to plan for imperfect spacing and just hope that it's crunched enough on the outside so that you can place the domino, but not too crunched on the inside so that it will still fall reliably. And there were a lot of very interesting geometric limitations that I found with this. this, or not necessarily limitations, but like problems that I had to work through. For example, we did a decagon, so it's a 10-sided shape, and I realized as I was building that one of the ways that the mountain chain was working with it is that it alternated where the connection was. And so it actually wasn't going to match up perfectly. Like, so I'll see how I can explain that, but basically there's like the dominoes that would match up like against the field starter measurement needed to be on opposite sides in order for the walls to like organically connect with the mountain chain technique. And so we realized that because of that, it wasn't going to match up with a 10-sided shape. For mountain chains, you alternate the type of wall or the base layer of the wall. So it starts with like the dominoes that are straight, like all parallel to each other, and then you have to do a wall that chains off of it with like the dominoes that alternate on the bottom. And so it was alternating even more than that with the mountain chains, because it was not only switching between those two, but also the side that the dominoes were placed would switch each half pyramid. So like every other parallel one would have like dominoes placed on the opposite side. It sounds very abstract, but the problem that poses is that for a 10-sided shape, it doesn't match up. So what we ended up doing was making the first half pyramid not technically connect. Like it like has an end cap where it would normally connect, and then we just built it normally other than that. And then I wanted to make each half pyramid about like somewhere like 20-25 layers. I just figured that would be like a good height. Also, because it's not in the very back, we didn't want it to be too crazy tall, but also with curved half pyramids, they need to be slightly larger than your regular half pyramid in order to work. I think it alternates technically between like 25 and 24. And then in the middle, we did a little pinwheel, which was fun, just to get like the colors to pop. It'll be like a fun way to go in. And you can see it surprisingly well because they're half pyramids and not actual walls. There's a nice little like visual entry point. So I'm hoping that works. Lily built a nice like net that goes around it. It's a neat technique. It reminds me of like when we first met, she did like a tennis racket trick at Domination. It's a similar like style to that, where it's a weaving domino line, which really helps it like visually pop around it too. It makes it a nice like centerpiece.
All right, I just had a huge fail. This is the biggest one that we've had in the setup so far. The entire outer ring just fell. So I was building dominoes over here. I don't even remember what happened. It was like so fast, but one of them just sort of like tipped over. I don't know, maybe my hand was blocking it, or maybe there was something on the floor, and it just went all the way around, and there was no way that I could really stop it because it was hard to reach and there were multiple lines falling at once. But it did look really cool. But I'm very sad now because now I have to rebuild it all, and it looked so good, and I know I can build it again, but it's just gonna take a really long time, and I don't think we're gonna be able to finish today, but that's all right.
The second idea I did was actually, this was the only idea that I had prior to this. And the reason I figured it would be perfect to do at Lily's space is because she has the materials to make it work, but I wanted to do like a layered collapsing tunnel. I think I used all but one of like the largest size of big blocks that Lily has, and then I used maybe all but like two of the second largest size to make some of like the platform on top. I made a huge tunnel / bridge, like there will be dominoes running beneath it, on top of it, and on top of this tunnel is going to be another tunnel made out of wooden planks, and then there will be dominoes like running on top of this, on top of the wooden tunnel. So it'll be like just a pile of domino spaghetti on top of one bridge, which has another bridge on top. And the thing we tested for this was the big block tunnel. I just set up exactly how I wanted the tunnel to be. I poured a bunch of like dominoes and wooden planks on top of it to like simulate the weight that will be on top of it from the second tunnel and the dominoes on top of that. When you have a test like that, it's a big confidence booster, and it makes you a lot more excited to build, so I was definitely ready to go after that. I will say the most painful part of that was trying to build the second platform of wooden planks on top of the first platform. Reason being that although the blocks are excellent, the big white blocks are excellent, they are slightly uneven when you stack them to that degree. So not every single block was perfect, and I had to try to make a wooden plank tunnel on top of that, which the wooden planks are like maybe 2.5 times taller than a domino, although they're the same width. So it's already naturally a bit harder to stack them just because they're so tall. And so putting them on top of an uneven surface and trying to make a flat surface out of those was pretty tough, and required a lot of like shifting around the big blocks to make sure that I was like matching the evenness on both sides. Some of them are just a tad off, and I think it's, luckily that didn't end up being too big a deal. But then I wanted to do like even more, obviously make it kind of just like a pile of dominoes on dominoes. And to do that, I also want to have dominoes on top of this platform. And that was also a very tricky part. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it was also very tricky because I'm working on like a double uneven surface and trying to place dominoes on top of that. So it was quite a challenge. I had a lot of like, very small domino line fails, as I would like place one on a crease and it would fall, or I'd place one on a crease and it would stand, and then I'd place another one and it would like slightly shift everything. A lot of those moments, but ultimately it came out pretty well. We used like some slightly lighter dominoes to go on top of the wooden planks, and hopefully that will allow the wooden planks to still fall without being early toppled. This trick revolves a lot around like the weights of different size blocks. You need like blocks that are beneath the ones on top to be very heavy so that they can fall but not be toppled early by the things that are going on top. Like this would not work with, for example, like a domino cube on top of a cube. You can't put like lines on both of those because the weight just wouldn't work out. It would be too much weight on top of a domino structure for it to fall. But what's nice about these tunnels is that they, in theory should be able to fall with some weight on top because they're a little bit more apt to do that, especially with using lighter materials on top. So I ended up doing the wooden planks in green, and then I decided to just kind of go for somewhat of a nature thing. Like we had these light dominoes that were like green and wooden colored, and so they matched up with the wooden planks a little bit more. And I ended up just kind of making like sort of vine looking things on top of the tunnel, and that inspired me to just make the whole section somewhat nature themed. So we have like the greens on top of the tunnels, and that looks kind of just like a jungle, and then I continue that onto the ground. Like we have like some jungles and waterfalls, and then I made the waterfalls segue into like a blue abstract water section, and then that's what actually is going to topple the tunnel and kind of leave that section as a whole. So those are the two like big tricks that I did while I was here. I'm only here for a couple of days, and normally when we do these collabs, it's we're here for a little bit more time, and the plan is like we pretty much do a project from start to finish. But since Lee had already had something set up, we spent a little bit more time just kind of having fun. We went rock climbing, we went to a park, things like that. Like, one thing that viewers may not know about us that much is that we're also pretty good friends in addition to being domino compadres. We've spent a lot of time together over the last, 9 years? I think 9 years, because we first met at Domination 2012, so summer of 2012, and it's summer of 2021 now. So we definitely like went in with the goal of like, just kind of having fun, building dominoes when we wanted to, and I think we had some great ideas, and it's gonna come out to a really good project.
And that is MarDominoes. Thank you so much, Nathan, for being on the podcast. I had a blast listening to your thought process, and just the way you think about dominoes, it really like inspires me, because when I watch your videos, I like sort of analyze them in the sense that what you do is something that I feel like can be transferred into like something new in a way that I haven't really seen before. Like, I don't know how you like come up with these ideas, but it's really cool, and I'm inspired. And every time you build with me, I feel very motivated to build as well. I think it's very good to just like have someone else there who's kind of on the same page as you, to just keep on building, as I always say. But yeah, thank you so much, Nathan. To everyone watching, go subscribe to MarDominoes. The link to his channel is in the description. This will probably be my next domino video, so stay tuned for the fall down. I really hope it works. It is quite sketchy, not gonna lie, but that's gonna be the fun of it, right? If you don't take any risks, you get a boring setup. But with this project, since it is pretty freestyled, we took quite a bit of risk, and hopefully that risk is worth it. I want to give a shout out to our featured community member, Domino Kid, who left this comment on my last video. Thank you for getting involved, and as always, I'm Lily Hevish, and keep on building.